Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi isanin ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Come to you again on page number 45 of our book Bidayatul Abid wa Kifayatul Zahid. We're going to conclude here with the prayer of the ill. Chapter Prayer of the Ill has been titled in brackets. Of course, if you're looking at the text, anything in brackets means that these are notes from the translator and not from the author himself. The Sheikh here, he says, as it's been translated, an obligatory prayer is not valid while seated on a vessel for the one able to stand, though it is valid on a standing or advancing mount due to harm from mud, rain, etc., fear of being separated from a travel group, fear of one's life from an enemy, or being unable to mount after dismounting. It is a must that one face the Qibla and does what they are able. Consideration is given to the resting place of the limbs during prostration, so if one unnecessarily puts their forehead on fluffy cotton or prays on a swing, it is invalid. A couple of important points to note here. The first of those here, as Shaykh Rahimahullah mentions, that the obligatory prayers are not valid while seated if a person is able to stand and they are on a vessel, meaning that they're on a ship, they're on some transport, and the closest thing that resembles this today is, of course, we do have ships and these types of boats and things, but mass transportation today is the airplane, right? So a person, we have a lot of trouble with this because you're on the airplane. It's not like the car. The car is easy, right? You're in the car or you're on the bus. There's going to be a stop somewhere. There's going to be a gas stop, a rest stop to get petrol, to get snacks and things. So you get down off the bus or out of the car and you perform your prayers on the ground, standing as they should be performed. This also should be noted that you shouldn't be praying in your car. I know that sometimes people, they may feel a little bit awkward or shy or embarrassed, depending on where you're located. A lot of times the Muslim minorities, a lot of the ladies, the sisters, they may feel a little bit awkward. Even the brothers, sometimes we find that they mention things like, oh, I was at work or I was out shopping and I didn't know where to pray, so I went and sat in my car and prayed, right? So remember, if you're sitting during the prayer and you're able to stand, then you are missing out intentionally on a pillar or even an obligation. You can't intentionally miss those things. So if there's no excuse for them to be missed, then the prayer is considered invalid. So you have to make time and you have to plan for your prayer, right? So if you're on an airplane, this is another great example, because sometimes we're on the airplane, we're obviously assigned seats. A lot of times we're asked to remain seated. We're asked to remain with our seatbelts buckled. However, it's not permitted that you pray while seated and you are capable of standing, all right? So this is something that has been tried numerous times. It's very successful by many people, including myself, is if you're on the airplane and it's time for prayer, if you're not going to land within the prayer time, meaning it's Salatul Dhuhr, for example, and your flight is a long flight, you're not going to land until later in the evening at Maghrib or Isha or whatever, you're going to miss the time, then you need to go ahead and pray while you're on the plane. You don't want to let the prayer time run out. So obviously if you're traveling, you're allowed to join the prayer. So if it's Dhuhr time and you're going to land before Maghrib time, then you should wait to get off the plane, and that way you can pray on the ground, both Dhuhr and Asr together. If, however, you're not going to land in time, then you need to perform your prayers on the plane. So you're going to have to find a way in order to stand, right? So you just go to the back of the plane, you seek permission from the flight attendants, and 99 times out of 100, they will have absolutely no problem accommodating you as the customer. As long as it does not jeopardize anyone's safety, meaning that they're going through turbulence, they'll have no problem letting you perform your prayers, and it only takes a couple of minutes to perform those prayers. So you find a place in the back, or if there's a prayer hall, and I know Saudi Arabian Airlines, they normally have prayer halls there, then you can perform your prayers standing. If they won't let you stand in the aisle or in the back area for food preparation and such, then you're going to have to do your very best at your seat. So you stand up at your seat if you're able to do so, and you begin your prayer as such. He says here, it is not valid if you are able to stand. He says, however, that it is valid the obligatory prayers while on a mount, which is standing or is underway, it is advancing. If you are going to experience some type of harm, whether that be from mud, you could fall down into some mud, some filth, some due to rain or something like that, like ice or extreme cold, or you're afraid that if you get down to perform your prayers, then your travel group will leave and you'll be cut off from them. You'll be cut off from them. Or if you fear from yourself, you fear for yourself from an enemy, the attack of an enemy, or believe it or not, the attack of an animal, right? So if you visit Tanzania, which is where I'm at now, you know that we have the Serengeti. And the Serengeti is the reserve, the wildlife out there, the safaris where people go and enjoy looking at the animals. And among the animals are dangerous creatures like lions and certain things like that. And perhaps if you're in an area where those animals are present and you can't leave in time to perform your prayer, you may fear that if you get down, you could be attacked by such animals. At this point, of course, it is permitted and it is valid for you to pray while you are underway or on the vessel here on the car. Or for example, if a person, they fear that if they get down from their mount, they will not be able to get back on. If they get down from their mount, then they will not be able to get back on. Then of course you're excused from getting down and you can pray while you're on the mount. Of course, all of these scenarios for the obligatory prayers, you have to face the Qibla to the best of your ability. You have to face the Qibla to the best of your ability, right? In all of the above scenarios, whether you're on the plane, whether you're out in the Serengeti, you're on your vehicle, your mount, and you can't get down due to the excused reasons that are mentioned in the books of the fuqaha, you have to still face the Qibla. And it should be noted here, the Qibla, and this is in general, while it is preferred by many that you face the Kaaba itself, regardless where you are, the Qibla is something that is very easy, especially those further away from the actual Kaaba. So the Qibla, as has been discussed previously, if a person is looking at the Kaaba, they are there in the masjid, they have to face the Kaaba exactly head on, without a degree off. You have to be looking directly at the Kaaba. When you come outside of the masjid and you begin to distance yourself away, then you have to face the masjid dead on. When you can no longer see the masjid, then you have to face the general area of the haram. And as you go further and further and further away, the margin that you have begins to widen. Okay, so it starts as a direct head-on view, and then the margin begins to the margin begins to widen until the Prophet ﷺ, as he mentioned, he says that the Qibla is what is between al-Mashriq wal-Maghrib, the east and the west. This is while they were in Medina, and of course Mecca was to their south. So in between these two regions, or these two directions. And the companions, they used to say, who could not face the Qibla when the Prophet said it's between the east and the west? Meaning it's simple. You just have a general ijtihad, a general estimation if you can't figure it out completely. It should be noted that this is also what's mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says to turn towards the Qibla or to face Shatra, which is the general direction, right? So you need to face at least the general direction. What is the measure, the scale here? How do we know that we face the general direction, or have we deviated too much, right? So many of the scholars of Islam, they say that a person is allowed some lenience, al-inhiraf al-yasir, which is called a slight deviation on the Qibla, inhiraf al-yasir, which is a slight deviation, even if it's known, there's a slight deviation. Sometimes you find the masajid, for example, they're slightly off. You find that the masjid was built, or the structure of it was set up that it's slightly off the Qibla, a couple of degrees here or there. this is no problem. This is not going to invalidate the prayer. It's not going to invalidate that prerequisite of the prayer facing the Qibla, because for us the Qibla is very wide. They say, however, al-inhiraf al-kabir is when a person makes the Qibla on their side, either the right side or the left, meaning they've turned themselves completely to the side like this. And the Qibla is where you are, of course, and they've turned their side to it. This is inhiraf al-kabir, which of course would invalidate the prayer. So this is something that should be considered when performing your prayers on planes, on vessels, and those types of things, as was mentioned here by the Shaykh, rahimahullah. So here we talked about all of these previous cases that they have to face the Qibla to the best of their ability. And then, of course, the ruku' and the sujood, or the gesturing of those things if they're unable to do them. Tuma'nina, all of the conditions, they still have to be met in the prayer, the prerequisites, all of the obligations. And so this is important to keep in mind, because you may run into a scenario. And lastly, he concludes here, he says that the position of the limbs here, consideration is given to the resting place of the limbs, where the limbs are going to be placed and rested upon. Consideration is to be given to them. Should take into account to what they're going to be resting upon. So basically, here what that means is, if you're going to be resting your head on fluffy cotton, like you have a cotton mattress or a bedspread, or one of the, sometimes they're selling these prayer mats that are cushioned prayer mats. They're quite cushiony, spongy. Then you should consider this, and what you have to do is you have to press down on these like fluffy objects, cotton or sponge or something, so that the limbs are firmly pressed against the object to where it actually compresses to reach the ground. Okay, compresses to reach the ground. Also, he talks about prayer on a swing, not like what we see in the kids' playground, but it was like a large hammock. They used to use these at some point in history, where they used to have these large hammocks they would put outside in their gardens, and it would keep a person elevated above the ground. And so it is not permitted, the prayer on these large hammocks or these types of things is not permitted unless there is a necessity to do so, unless there's something that prevents you from getting down onto the ground. Otherwise the prayer is invalid. It has to be performed on the ground. And this is where we'll wrap up for today. And inshallah ta'ala, when we catch up with each other again, we'll look at page number 47, which is shortening the prayer. Jazakallah khair. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.